Keep playing.
Welcome back to another episode of Eagles Weekly. Here are your hosts, Brett, Haas, Mac, and Jack. How we feeling, fellas?
Intro crushed as always. I see a big smile on your face. That worked out phenomenally.
We're
missed
back.
that intro, man. I missed
We're
that
back.
intro.
We are back. I'm one of your hosts, Brett, joined today by international marketing guru, right? It's been a while. International marketing guru, Mac Hutchinson, our ACC athlete, Jack Cyberlick. Boys, how are you? It's been a little bit.
Yeah, happy to be back. I feel like we had a great year one, Bill O'Brien. It didn't end the way we wanted to, but hey, we've been having a pretty awesome off season so far, and happy to hop back on because we just got the new schedule for 25. So yeah, man, missed you guys. Good to be back. It'll be good to get these kind of rolling again, and yeah, feeling good.
Yeah, a lot to catch up on. I don't think we've done this since before the bowl game, so I think gotta wrap up the season, talk about the off season schedule. A lot to fit in here.
A lot to fit in. I have not an admittance. I guess an admittance.
Admittance.
Yeah, I gotta come clean
Confession?
about something. Confession. I have a confession. So, in regards to the bowl game, all three of us are there. I didn't see either one of you. The reason I didn't see you guys is me and my girlfriend we stayed up way too late. Was not partying. I ate like a lot of pizza that night. Had a real good time and overslept quite a bit. I think we hopped on the subway at kickoff, so I didn't actually get to Yankee Stadium until virtually right before halftime. But I was unable to obtain my media pass, so I missed out on that. Was able, thank you to our non-sponsor, the Game Time app, was able to grab a couple tickets from there.
Not sponsored. Yep.
Yeah. Not sponsored yet, this is trying to throw that out there too, so hit us up. But yes, I did miss the media stuff, but I was there, and I apologize to both of you for not seeing you. Jack, I wanted to meet your girlfriend, so apologies to her as well.
Hey, well, she wasn't there, so you didn't miss much.
Oh, she was? I thought she was with you. No,
I was just staying at her place to get
gotcha,
there. But
gotcha. Okay.
yeah, hey, that's okay. Well, you didn't miss much. You missed
You saved her from a lot of
wet, cold. We went down 13-2. Somehow weird score.
Yeah,
So you guys didn't miss much.
It was just like a blowout baseball game score.
It was a baseball score for a good amount of that game.
Yeah, I guess we could high level recap that game a little bit. I mean,
yeah,
I remember. I'm trying to think back. I remember Grayson threw the ball a ton because we just could not run the ball.
yeah.
I think he threw for about 300 yards. We were down. I'm looking at it now. We were down 13-2 because we had the kick return on the extra point, which was sick, but it only got us 2 points,
Right.
unfortunately.
That was fun.
It was fun though, yeah. And then we made it a game at the end, but just Patrick Mahomes or Dylan Raiola, sorry, was too much to bear.
Easy mistake.
Yeah, easy mistake. But hey, it was fun. It was fun to get there. Yankees. It was like 80% Nebraska fans, but it was a fun, as fun as it could have been in a cold and rainy December day.
Yeah,
It was a total BC loss. So I feel like hopefully it's our last kind of that type of game under Bill O'Brien, because it was one of those things where we went into that game being like, 8 wins is such a big deal. Like getting that 8th win would have been huge, and they could have won that game. I feel like there was parts of that game where you're like, they should have won that game, and I think Grayson had one of his better games too.
Yeah,
totally.
It just really came down to just like lack of execution. I think it was like I think I said it was like 6 or 7 turnovers because we had like 4 or 5 turnovers on downs. We just multiple
Yeah,
times within
yeah,
one. You just convert even 1 or 2 of those. I mean, we should win that game. It was just
Yeah.
not a single fourth down conversion we couldn't do. So, but at the end of the day, I mean, you take it with a grain of salt too, because a lot of players, Ozzy wasn't playing, Izuraku wasn't playing, of course. So, but still, I mean, we had that opportunity for the 8th win.
Yeah.
Fortunate, but you move on. You move on pretty quickly from that.
I was listening to AJ Black's his Locked On today, and he had a good point where you never want to be like when you're in the hunt for that 8th win, as as BC is, it's been so long. It's just not a great position to be like relying on that on a bowl game to get it, because like it's such a crapshoot. You don't know who's opting out on your team or the other team. You don't know who you could play. Nebraska, you could play anybody really, whoever the committee decides. So I mean, it was a good opportunity to get the 8th win for sure, but I mean, you just never know what you're going to get in a bowl game like this.
And then the conditions too for like a late December game. So
and when you're in a game where like it'd be great, you gotta be able to run the ball, and you're missing your 3 starting offensive linemen or 4, I forget what it was. It's just it's just not a game that it's just hard to be banking on that to get your 8th win. So
yeah, no, I agree with that. I feel like the standard has to be you get to 8 wins in the regular season, right? So like that was the norm. That's when like BC was at Tom O'Brien era was 8-9 win regular season wins, and then maybe you go to a bowl and you can get that 10th, or you can have that magical season. But that definitely is the expectation. I mean, Bill O'Brien's preached about that too. That has to be the expectation. So, I mean, you can't be hoping for a bowl game where you don't even know which team is going to play and what team you're going to play against to get that 8th win. So, but yeah, it was a fun experience. Though I talk from the media perspective. It was cool being in Yankee Stadium, Fenway last year, and then Yankee Stadium this year. And it was, besides the rain, it was cool where for Yankee Stadium you had like kind of the open media box, so like you could see the entire. But of course, I think I'm done. I think most of the fans are done with baseball stadiums, man. We gotta get a warm weather bowl. I mean, that's kind of the goal.
Or is it a football stadium at least?
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, exactly. Just I'm sick of the rain in a baseball stadium. That's like 2 years in a row. It's been pretty brutal.
Yeah, very deja vu for sure.
There wasn't there really wasn't like a good seat in there as well. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because like even the seats that were like along the sidelines were so far from the sidelines. The seats that were kind of close to the fields were, more towards like the corner of the end zone. So it really, like the way the field's set up there, it's really just not a good viewing experience. I'm sure media struggled with that as well, but I don't think
we're watching the whole game on the TV, basically, because you couldn't really tell what was happening. It was baseball stadium, it's like
state of the art jumbotron though, so I guess that they got that going for them. It was cool. I don't know about you guys. That was the first time I ever went to Yankee Stadium.
Yeah,
so
same.
like for like as like a baseball fan to be able to like go there and kind of see it for what it is, I can see why it's probably a good time to go watch a baseball game, but a college football game probably not as much. Unfortunately.
It was cool, kind of. So before the game, I was able to sneak on the field for like a little bit and take some photos. So that was cool.
Yeah.
It was, dude. The whole field was mud. Like it was just straight.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Like my feet were like soaked the entire game.
I bet. That was the other thing that I was kind of pissed off about. Well, not pissed off about, but like last year for the Fenway Bowl, like they were like it even said that we were allowed on the field before and after, whereas like the guidelines, and I'm glad that you guys were able to get on the field, but like in the guidelines for media for Yankee Stadium, it said like no media was allowed on the field, which I was just like, that's another reason why the Red Sox are so much cooler than the Yankees because at least we get to go on the field for Fenway as opposed. I would because as much as I don't like the Yankees, like I was really kind of that was my thing is I was like I want to go on the field. I want to like be able to take a picture down there. But I am glad that you guys I saw it was like what you Haas, Kevin, and someone else on the field.
Yeah, a bunch of media guys we got on.
Yeah,
I went on before, and like they let me
I'm
on. Once it was close to the game, they weren't letting us on, so that was.
I'm glad that you guys are able to get on for that. That's cool. That's a cool experience. Same field as Derek Jeter. That's pretty freaking cool.
The last thing of note I will say to wrap up the bowl game stuff was we had a kind of surprise media showing from president of Boston College, Father Leahy, which I don't think I've never got the opportunity to ever talk to him or like meet him in person or anything like that. Yeah. So it was we actually got a couple questions at the end, and I just wanted to get your guys' take on this at all because I asked him. If you go to Twitter, you can go to like my pinned tweet in my Twitter profile. I asked him this question. It was basically, how college football is obviously becoming a professional sport, obviously with like NIL and the transfer portal and everything. And I asked him, with Boston being such a pro sports town, is your vision kind of aligned with that? Do you see BC football as the 5th Boston sports team, which is, I think, a reasonable question in the landscape.
Sure.
And his response basically was, pretty much BC football isn't a professional sport. I don't look at it that way. It's a collegiate sport. But he did mention, he will try and keep BC up to a certain standard and do whatever he's got to do. So it was a very iffy answer. It wasn't the answer I, as a Boston sports fan, wanted. I would love him to be totally own and understand it's going to be a professional sport. We're going to that. And that's his vision for the school and for the program. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys got a chance to see that because it was interesting. We got to actually ask him some questions in the pregame press conference to the bowl game.
Yeah, I saw that too. And when I first saw his kind of response to it, it's not a huge vote of confidence in the his willingness to kind of invest into BC the way they need to be to kind of keep up with everyone else, the other Power 5 conferences that are spending millions of dollars on players. I think on a certain level, he kind of has to say, "Oh, we're at our core, we're a college, we're not a professional sports team." Being the president of the school, a man of God kind of thing. But yeah, I think I don't know. I've never talked to Leahy or don't have much of an opinion on him, but I think people have certain opinions of his, or they have certain doubts about how willing he is to actually invest in BC and make them a sports institution as opposed to just an academic institution. Because clearly, they've risen through the ranks of academic institutions across the country.
Sure.
Whereas maybe is that at the expense of athletics? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But yeah. But to your point, I don't know, and purely as a college sports fan, not a huge fan of that answer, but I don't know. There's some nuance there for sure.
Yeah.
I think especially, it's such a Leahy answer to kind of take the kind of middle of the road, and it's kind of stand on one side, but also cater to the other side, but not really. And it's the political response, right? Not really take a side either way. Kind of stick your toe in and, be oh, we're not a pro team, we're an academic institution, but yeah, we're gonna try to wade the waters. But, so it's he never really gave a real concrete answer either way. But as BC guys, we kind of know which way that he leans in his answer, which is the first part of it's an academic institution, and no, we don't want to treat this like a pro organization. I think we kind of know that, and based on context clues, like that's what checks out for us.
Yeah.
So it's disappointing, but not surprising, I would say, in his response. It was very, very on par and very on brand for how he's always kind of gone about things, during his tenure at BC. And, it's really not too surprising, but no, I'm with both of you on that. And you were the one who asked the question, right?
Yeah, I asked that. We got a couple questions in, so I was like, "This is my one chance." I think as like a BC, because I don't think he's ever been questioned by media, and like,
yeah,
I don't remember if he's ever been. So, but yeah, I think for me, I 100% agree. It wasn't surprising. I mean, we're at the end of the day, Boston College is a Catholic institution, and like his legacy has always been, okay, we're academic first, and I believe it's in either 2026 that he's potentially retiring from Boston College. I know that was announced already, and that's been changed a few times, but I think that's clearly his legacy. He's not going to, move from that. So, yeah, very, Father Leahy, glad he answered that. And then Blake this was my feeling, and I'm not going to put words into Blake's mouth, but it felt like Blake knew knowing media and knowing where the college football landscape was. His response to Leahy's answer, it seemed like he kind of knew that obviously the media and college football fans, that's not what they want to hear. But at the end of the day, I think the same way fans are kind of tied to the university, he's kind of tied to Leahy, and at the end of the day, like that's kind of what he has to deal with. So I think, and credit to Blake James, I think he's been really good at maneuvering that very difficult situation of, yes, we're a Catholic academic institution, but he's trying to bring athletics closer and closer to professionalism as he can, and kind of dealing with those things that are pulling in a few different directions.
Just a little sidebar on Blake though, before you go, Jack. Has anyone had more of a glow up in like public perception?
From Miami, dude, the disaster,
and Blake James. Like Blake James was kind of a train wreck when he first got here, and now he's like God sent to us. So
he's balling.
That's all. Yeah. That's all I wanted to say. Sorry, Jack.
No, all good. I mean, I was going to say, in contrast to kind of our perception of Leahy, like he's kind of shown a willingness to, invest whatever dollars he can, allowed by the powers that be. He hired NFL coach Bill O'Brien. Like, obviously the circumstances allowed it to happen, but he's still spending, millions of dollars on that contract. He hired a great new baseball coach for the baseball team. I think he's at Penn State before. The swim and dive coach, I think, was another one, but track and field coach definitely. So Blake has definitely shown that, I think, willingness to kind of view it as and he set up the whole NIL structure that we've heard so much about for the football team. So I think he's shown his ability to navigate, kind of the new, we talk about all the time, the new world of college football, whatever. It's just the norm now. I think I do have a certain level of trust in Blake to continue to navigate that, so long as he's supported by an administration, a president that's willing to, help support him in that,
Yeah, and we'll get into it later, but with him in regards to basketball too, is I feel like I do trust him to make the correct decision, and whichever way he decides to go. I fully believe that he'll have it in his best interest. So I do trust him when it comes to kind of leading the athletic departments and the individual teams as they stand. So we'll see.
That's probably the good segue though, because I think the confidence that you have in him redirecting that basketball program is you're seeing evidence with the football program. So like, so this offseason, I think, has been one of the best off seasons. Like we should talk about the portal, but also recruiting. Like,
of course,
the portal. I mean, we haven't had a chance to talk about this, but Bill O'Brien picked up a quarterback. He picked up his guy,
Yeah.
Dylan Lonergan quarterback from Alabama. He also picked up Ty Lockwood, tight end from Alabama as well. Yeah. So you see, like, Bill O'Brien's, making these moves. He's getting also the support from NIL and from the school to do all these different things. But I mean, I think that's one of the biggest offseason moves so far. Dylan Lonergan, and you have Grayson James here. To me, and I want to get your guys' take. This is going to be a legitimate battle for quarterback this summer, especially in summer camp.
Yeah,
And
totally.
I think it really at this point could be anyone's coming out of that as QB1. But that's kind of what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a big name. I think Lonergan was a former top 100 recruit coming to Alabama. So,
Yep.
Dracovic-esque, probably a little bit better as a recruit than Phil was.
Yeah.
Pre-injury, people forget he's a really good quarterback. But yeah, it's exciting to get guys from that big of a school. Obviously, Bill had his hand in recruiting those guys to Alabama, I think. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good QB1 battle. I mean, Lonergan doesn't have a ton of tape. Obviously, playing behind Jalen Milroe, who mixed reviews on him, but it seems like they were pretty bummed to see Lonergan go. They have a pretty competitive quarterback room, so I think it was the right move for him. But yeah, between him and Grayson James, I think it'll be an exciting spring camp and competitive up to week 1. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's funny too because I don't think that this kid would have come here if he didn't think that he absolutely was going to win the starting job. And it's really good competition wise to have someone like Grayson James who definitely has the capability and the background to be able to keep the starting job. So, I don't think that it's a bad scenario to be in when you have two quarterbacks vying for one spot and both of them are very talented, and it's really just going to push them individually, and really see who's going to come out on top. And whoever does come out on top, for BC as a whole, that's a very good spot to be in. And I think the quarterback position, is going to be in very good hands next season, which, we thought that it was in good hands coming into this season. Turns out it wasn't. But I think that they're in a really, really, it's a really good predicament to have, and then, speaking of AJ Black talks about it, where it's like a lot of fans get caught up with the I can never say it correctly, transfer portal. And it's like they want to get transfers from like well-known schools and like Power 4 conferences. But it's like if you're a mid player at a Power 4 conference, you're probably going to be mid when you come over. And that's not to say for all of them. But that's why, and he was when the names came out for like the Iona kid or the Valparaiso kid, all these like kind of FCS schools transfers that came over too. That's the route that you do find a lot more success. The kids that play and prove that they can play at a higher level, bring them in,
100%.
and then, but when you get a kid from Alabama who's just buried on a depth chart, like those are the transfers that you look for from the power conferences, not the kids, from other schools that just weren't hitting the field, not at schools that not named Alabama. Those are the kids you kind of want to stay away from because they're probably going to come here and do the same thing, but when you have a quarterback from Alabama or a tight end from Alabama, you get those kids. So I'm very satisfied with their, portal action this year. I think it's been phenomenal.
I 100% agree, Brett, where it's the same thing. It's where we needed quarterback depth. And now look, that quarterback room just got so much better. And like you were saying, Bill O'Brien strategically, he goes after the skill players, maybe in those big name school, but like, obviously we needed all this depth on the offensive line and defensive end. Those are positions that are more, I'd rather have a guy that's, maybe starting at Princeton every single game, has 40 games under his belt, versus a guy who's like a 4-star at Alabama who's never started in his entire life.
Right, exactly.
He understands that. He goes and he sees, oh, look at this kid who's proven that he can be developed, has proven to improve. Like, 10 times out of 10, I'm choosing that guy. So all of these moves, I 100% agree. The transfer portal moves, He's opened up the depth. He's gone after every position he's need to. So yeah, you're looking at the transfer portal, and I'm thinking I'm rating that 4.5 stars out of 5 for the most part. Like that was great, and you got your guy. I was saying this all last year. Like wait until Bill O'Brien gets his quarterback. Wait until he starts getting these players. And again, for people to understand, this is his first offseason ever. Like this is his first time being able to get transfers. First time being able to recruit. Like he's never been able to do this yet. So this is the first time bringing in his guys. And you're just, with all his experience in the NFL and even in college football too, at the highest level, you just got to trust that and, trust his coaches to be able to evaluate too.
Yeah, I think we talked about the QB1 battle between Grayson and Lonergan, but you also have 4-star Shaker Rising coming in. Like it's just going to be a really good. If you want to think about just like long-term timeline for these quarterbacks, you have Grayson. I don't think Grayson has eligibility after next year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but theoretically you have your QB1 competition for 2025, 2026. Presumably Lonergan steps in.
Do you guys have any early predictions on Lonergan versus Grayson? I know we're like super early.
I tend to. I know next to I've seen the tape of Lonergan, and there's not that much, so that makes me think leaning towards Grayson, given that he's had a year of experience under Bill O'Brien, and he won 4-1. He won Western Kentucky, Syracuse,
and he proved every year. He basically got better every single year.
Almost beat SMU. So I think he's had a year in this offense. I probably favor him, but Lonergan, his talent hasn't exactly been utilized yet. So we'll see what Bill sees in him. So I think I lean James now, but it would not surprise me to see Lonergan win that position.
There's no way that Lonergan wears number 12, right?
I don't think he 12.
Oh, is that? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that not retired?
I think it's
I think he's retired, Brett. Or are they allowed to still use retired in college football?
I think technically the only numbers we have retired are 22 and 68.
Oh, right. They're like glowed up, right?
Yeah, I think 12. I think 12 is just kind of like out of circulation. Same with 40.
I think they have tended to not put it on someone's back, but yeah.
Right. Like I think it's one of those unspoken. It's like number 21 for the Red Sox, where they don't give it out. But
dude, we really got to retire though, like Matty Ice and Kuechly though. Those are legit. I feel like, but
I mean, they deserve it. If anyone should get their numbers retired, it's them too. I would say. I don't know.
I agree with you though, Jack. With the obviously, who knows? Lonergan might just blow out, and Bill O'Brien's like, "No, you're my guy, and I brought you in here, and you're my guy."
So that could totally happen, but yeah.
But at the same time, if you say it is a legit battle, right? You tend to start Grayson, because if Grayson struggles at all, then you can bring in Lonergan, right? And you kind of still have momentum in that development. Versus if you go ahead with Lonergan, you've kind of already sidelined Grayson. That would be a little tougher to kind of bring him in afterwards if Lonergan did struggle towards the beginning. But again, who knows? I trust Bill to assess that. He's the quarterback.
If Grayson goes to ACC Media Day, it means Lonergan's going to be the starter.
Well, by the end of the year, at least.
100% agree with that one.
That's a fucking fact. Whoever goes to ACC Media Day, the other guy's the starter.
It'll be. I'm interested to see when Bill names if he names a starter prior to week 1, because one kind of concern I might have is if it's an open competition up to week 1, the way it was for Castellanos and Moorhead, yeah. We're 5 quarterbacks past Moorhead at this point, so
seriously.
But yeah, if it's that kind of competition, I do wonder how the offense is able to adjust to each quarterback's individual skill set versus if you commit to either Lonergan or James a month before the season. You have 4 solid weeks where you're saying this is our QB1. We're going to build the offense around him. Whereas if it's not, it's more of a nebulous situation, which might not be ideal kind of going to the season, I guess. So I'll be interested to see how Bill kind of plays that or bounces that out.
I feel like the nice thing though is that at least you're not dealing with like a running quarterback, right? They both, I think, for the most part, can fit in. You've seen this with like Grayson; he's gotten more and more comfortable with Bill O'Brien's system and long system. So like, you hopefully would be like, okay, we're both fitting you into this system, whether we go with you or you. Like, you got to know the exact same plays. You're running it the same way. But I have this hunch that we'll definitely hear. Before, I don't think we're going to have as much drama at the end. I think Bill O'Brien, a couple weeks in, or maybe even halfway into the camp, he'll announce or something. I just have this feeling where he's going to want to move forward as soon as possible once he knows. Who maybe it's the beginning, maybe it's the middle, but there's no need to have the drama into week one. You're playing Fordham, right? So you don't have to like make sure the team doesn't know who's quarterback. So I just have this hunch that Bill's just, you've seen this with some sort of announcements in media where we thought, oh, he's not going to tell us until game day, but he just straight up says it. And I think he's one of those guys where I've gotten the feeling from last year covering him. Once he knows and he makes a decision, he's no problem just telling media because he's like, I want the team to know this is the decision I made. And like, even if it gives us a potential disadvantage, like we're going forward with that, like no excuses here. So I think that's refreshing. Previous to Hafley, who would like not give us any information and like menace, like it seemed like it was less orderly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, with Hafley, it was like week 10 and it was still fucking Tommy Castellanos or Emmett Moorhead or Phil Dracovic on the depth chart, and it was like, all right, dude, like we all know what's up. It's okay,
dude. Emmett going to the 2022 ACC media day, dude, was freaking crazy.
Yeah, just to get pulled out after like 6 passing attempts or something.
It was one drive. One drive. It's like
it was 1 or 2. Yeah, I don't know. Like I can't imagine. Like I can't imagine what the situation was behind the scenes for it to take one drive and then pull them out like that. It's kind of crazy.
I know. I've always wondered, and I don't know that we'll ever get the answer.
That shows you the contrast, though. Of like Bill O'Brien would never do that type of crap. He would never just because he promised a player he would start or whatever. He'd be like, "No, I'm going to do what wins." But
I mean, Jeff Hafley interviewed for the Jets job. That was funny.
Saw that. Yeah,
I will say
for the Jets fans, he
had a pretty good
day. I will say he did do a good job on defense for Green Bay this year. He's a very good coordinator. It's not a
very
coordinator.
Good.
Yeah,
not a great head coach. I mean, I watched his defense against the Eagles in the playoffs. It surprised me. I'll say that. But it did piss me off when they would pan him so much, like between snaps or whatever.
Yeah.
In the box. Good for him. It seems like he has a good thing going in Green Bay.
I'm going to briefly kind of go over some of the other off-season news, guys. Before I get into recruiting, which is real positive, I'll just go over quickly the coaching changes. Sure. So this last week, Doug Marrone, it was announced he's going to the Patriots. He's obviously a long-term friend of Bill O'Brien, but he probably very positively wanted him to go to the Patriots. He's, they're all very close to Vrabel, so that makes a lot of sense. Sad thing, Will Blackman, friend of the show, we love him, but he's leaving. I believe he's taking a high school job somewhere. I didn't get confirmation on that.
I saw that in his Twitter. He's still in high school. I forget where, but
I forget. Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah,
good for him. It makes sense.
Best of luck. Best of luck to him.
Up and coming coach, makes a lot of sense. He's going to be hopping around a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely, and best of luck to him.
And then another, speaking of up-and-coming coaches, we had a vacancy of the defensive line coach. They just formalized that this week really quickly. Jordan Thomas, he's going to be the new defensive line coach. He's a very good up-and-coming coach. He was very highly recommended by Vrabel. Bill O'Brien and Vrabel are just like, they're just like sending off coaches to each other. But he's from California, so that's kind of cool for recruiting too. Got some Cal connection.
Yeah, good spot. Yeah.
But those are the main coaching changes that kind of happened. Really, nothing too dramatic there. So you pretty kept this good core of coaches, going into 2025. But those are the only notable things. I don't know if you guys have any comments on that before we move on to recruiting. But I think for the most part, we're looking good as far as the same leadership going into year 2.
Yeah, I mean, Will Blackman, I enjoy seeing his stuff on Twitter. And Doug Marrone, longtime friend of Bill. I'm sure he's a great guy, but I'm not losing sleep over these guys are both I think Doug Marrone helped out with the offensive line. Will Blackman helped out with DBs, but they weren't position coaches, So I mean,
right, exactly.
Best of luck to them, but I'm not. I don't think BC is missing out on a ton with these losses. But yeah, wish those guys the best, of course. But
did you guys expect there to be more changes? I thought Matt Thurman might be gone, the special teams coach, but
yeah, that was the one I thought. There's and I remember there was chatter about possibly lawing. So that was more in this in mid-season where people are just always frustrated about stuff.
Right.
I wasn't too. I thought the special teams won maybe, but I didn't think I wasn't expecting too much, especially after just a year of Bill.
I was more on the punters, to be honest. It was really, what could you do with that?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and they really. I mean, I think their kicking is more just a talent. The reason why they weren't kicking field goals, which is kind of weird, but I think it's a talent thing.
Yeah, I mean, if it's still a thing,
kicker was a better punter.
Yeah, I mean, if it's still a thing after this year, maybe it is a coaching thing once you have a full, off season to address it. But yeah, I think it's largely chalked up to just lack of talent at the position. I mean,
yeah,
you saw how many 25-yard punts did we see in alumni this year? I mean, no offense to those guys, but we're a Power 4 school here, guys. We can't be doing that.
Right.
So that's what I would chalk it up to. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting too much in terms of coaching changes, I'd say.
Yeah, I feel like that was pretty much that was what is expected, and Doug going to the Pats, good for him. And I think, as far as coaching connection changes, the only one I thought was maybe Matt, but I think the coverage was pretty decent last year, and a lot of his schemes ended up the system that he put in place is still working. So it really comes down to bringing in more talent, which is another good segue, I think, to recruiting. I think Bill O'Brien's having a fantastic. I mean, again, this is his first time recruiting as a head coach at Boston College, having a fantastic offseason so far. As of right now, he has 5 of the top 8 Massachusetts recruits for 2026. And I expect that potentially to maybe even get better. The funny note of this, we haven't talked about this yet, was, of course, Bill Belichick has been announced the new head coach at UNC. That's
still
been the
weird
college football drama, and I still don't understand it either. But it was, I guess, the development that I have to report on this week was he was all over Massachusetts this week, trying to potentially poach a few of those top 8 recruits I just mentioned in Massachusetts. So that'll be interesting to kind of watch as we go forward, if he's going to potentially steal some of Bill O'Brien's recruits. But so far, recruiting's been fantastic, and he's going all over the place. This is, again, first time he's able to travel and go meet players in person for the first time as the head coach. So it's been very positive lately.
Yeah, and I think especially the last offseason, not only was it a shortened offseason for him, but I think that what he had to focus on last year was player retention, on his own roster, and talk, because remember last year he talked about how they scheduled a meeting with every single player on the team. And it was a very successful outcome, as there was, very minimal transfers out. And it was a lot of guys that really would have transferred, whether it was Hafley or Bill O'Brien. But yeah, I think last year, was a lot of damage control and, focused on, their own roster as it stood, as opposed to this year, I think it's going to be, and, you're seeing it, he's able to really focus on the actual recruiting trail and on, the transfers. And, he's able to really dedicate a lot more of that, this off season, which, it has proven very successful. And, like you keep saying, it's his really his first off season. I don't really count last year. It's really an off season for him.
Yeah.
And I mean, if this is the kind of the production that he's going to give you in an off season, I can only imagine once he really gets comfortable in year 2, year 3, year 4 in terms of that. So I think it's very exciting. And I know in the Patriots, with the Patriots were conducting their head coaching search, Bill O'Brien's name came up a couple of times, and I did. I would be lying if I said it didn't scare the shit out of me, because I think that is a job that he would.
I was worried too, man.
Leave BC for, and it would be very BC of us to get all of our hopes up and really see it too. It's not even like this guy came here and we're just hyped on the name, and he hasn't really delivered for BC. He's delivered for Boston College up to this point, but to have that get ripped out, the proverbial rug ripped out from underneath us, and have him go to the Patriots, that would have just fucking been terrible. So I'm I'm glad that it was Vrabel and not Bill O'Brien, because that would have sucked.
Thank you, Mike Vrabel. Seriously.
Seriously, Tyler Vrabel's dad. Thank you.
Seriously, guys. No, I was worried. I think I texted you, Brett. I was like, that's probably the one NFL job that I would be worried about, because the big reason he came back here is he wanted to be close to family, and of course he's like been in that organization at the Patriots for a long part of his career. So that would be. I 100%. If that was ever offered to him, I think he would take that in a second. So
I think
again,
you have to.
That's still there. But yeah, thank God for Vrabel. Also one of my favorite head coaches. So, and whose son went to Boston College, and that's, I think, super positive. You can already see how they're like helping each other out with coaching. And you think he mentioned it in his press conference, Vrabel, how he's going to do anything he can do to help Bill O'Brien at the Heights. So it's cool. It's cool having all those guys that have heavy connections like all in one region here.
Yeah. Just don't fucking steal them.
I was even worried about the offensive coordinator.
I was too. Did they hire an offensive coordinator? I know we're not a Patriot show. But
no, they got what's his face? Who was here forever?
Josh McDaniels. That's right.
Yeah, they got Josh. I can't believe I forgot.
I did too. Thank God they got him and not Billy O. We can't.
No, they're bringing the whole game back. They're bringing like the whole, again, which is a critique. I think people are like, are the Patriots kind of stuck in the past here? Or the Crafts kind of stuck in the past doing that? But hey, you got to try it, right? Well, it's still around.
I guess. Go Birds, honestly. Go Birds.
Hey, appreciate that.
Of course. You're my friend.
My one Patriot. I know we'll get back to Boston College in a second, but my one Patriots question is: after watching Jaden Daniels make a NFC Championship, does it make you think about that third pick? Or oh no, he went before Drake May, anyways.
It was the second pick.
Does it make you?
We didn't have Drake.
Does it make you jealous?
It's jealous,
would you rather have Jaden or Drake May at this point?
Well, that's a tough one.
I think that they're both insanely talented. I don't know that if Jaden Daniels was on the Patriots, if he would elevate them more than Drake May. Patriots are pretty fucking bad. Patriots are a bad team.
I mean, without Jaden Daniels, I don't think the Commanders are pretty bad, but the Patriots, they're bad.
I think if you switch them, I think Drake May. I don't know that he would have got to the NFC Championship game. It's hard to say, but I think that they're each team's results would have been fairly similar. Like I think that if Drake May was on the Commanders, they would have had a winning playoff season, and I think
Yeah.
that the Patriots would have been pretty fucking bad. I think they're both very talented. You know what I'm saying? Like I think they're both
Yeah.
equally talented. I don't think that you could go wrong with either pick. I think the
Drake
Caleb,
May, though, being balling out with like no offensive line. I mean, that's why I feel like I'm kind of leaning toward Drake May because you kind of saw him.
he made them watchable.
Yeah, he made him watchable.
He did make him watchable, and he kind of did his job by losing up until the last game of the year. But you know,
Well,
And
that was Joe Milton.
yeah, that wasn't his
He did his
fault,
job.
You know,
Yeah.
he did his job.
The whole country is going to be rooting for your Eagles against the Chiefs. How do you feel about that?
I don't know if that's true. I feel like a lot of people watching just hate both the teams.
Yeah,
That's very true. I mean, from a Boston,
I think 2 years ago, the first time it happened, I think the Eagles were more in that America's team kind of role. But I think
For
now
it's too soon, right?
mean,
It's too soon.
Yeah, I think now people just are rooting for a meteorite at the stadium before seeing one of those teams win.
I
Kinda
have Eagles allegiance.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. My good friend Jack, and then I have another buddy out in Philly who he sends me like Philly merch pretty often.
Yeah.
So
same. I have a bunch of buddies in Philly, and I'll root for it. But it is tough as a Boston fan to root for any Philly team. But
Yeah.
I would my only like Philly dislike is the Sixers, really, and I really don't dislike the Sixers, but that's like the one team.
I think I probably dislike the Celtics more than you dislike the Sixers because you guys always beat us. So
yeah, that's very
I understand
true.
that.
That's
that kind of rivalry. So
yeah, and I went to game 1 of the Sixers Celtics series a couple years ago, and I sat directly in between two Sixers fans, and they were both.
Wait, the one that the Sixers won in Boston?
Yes.
Oh, I was at that game too.
Were you?
Yeah, no way. When Harden had the game winner.
Yep, it was a tough game for me being a Celtics fan.
Wait, I have to ask you guys both this because we're obviously both all hardcore loyal fans to our cities.
Mm-hmm.
What's your guys' take on the whole Big Cat being from Boston and like being Mr. Chicago thing? Is that a nothing burger, or do you think that's
it's a nothing burger?
Right.
He went to school.
Yeah.
He went to school out there. So
everyone's losing their brain about that last week.
I think like I don't know. I mean, he said his whole thing like he had like an uncle that made him like it was like his second team kind of, which is kind of bullshit. But I mean, I don't question his. He's going from the winningest NFL dynasty in sports to Chicago. Like it's not like he's jumping on any bandwagons. So
No,
I feel like I get it.
Deal.
From like a Boston sports like perspective, you think, oh, like if you grow up here, like you're just diehard loyal. It doesn't matter where you go to. But at the same time, it's kind of like it was such an overreaction. You're just like, all right, we're just like all adults here, and you think, why are we freaking out about this guy? I feel
I'm sure on some level, yeah. So
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm sure on some level it's like related to like his job at Barstool. Like he's the Chicago guy.
How successful he got.
And I'm sure that's probably true on some level, but I don't think he's been faking it for however many years, like 20 years or whatever. I think he really is a Chicago sports fan. But yeah. Also, did you guys see apparently Mike Gualtieri? Shout out to him. He's been on this for a few years now. He's been.
I did see that. I did see how.
Yeah, he's pulling up like old tweets at Big Cat from like 2018. Yeah. He's like Big Cat. I thought you were from Newton or whatever. So he's been on this for a while. So shout out to Mike. But yeah, it's a funny thing, but I really don't think it's that big of a deal.
It's a total.
What's he, Newton North guy, right? I think.
Apparently, yeah. It's the only time his high school yearbook.
Yeah. Go. Shout out the Tigers on that one. They used to pummel us.
Us being who?
Dedham. They used to pummel us in high school. They used to destroy us because they're so big and we're not big at all. So they would fucking crush us.
All right, guys, we're on to our biggest item, I think, of the podcast. It dropped last night.
Yes.
The schedule, the football BC football schedule for 2025. I'm gonna say just straight up, and I want to hear your guys' takes on this. But for me, from a fan, I'm not going to talk about media and covering this team. From a fan's perspective, this is a 10 out of 10 schedule. I mean,
absolutely
it's clearly tougher than last year, and we can talk about, hey, do we have a chance of getting to 8 wins this year? But just the fact that we have 3 college football teams at home in Alumni Stadium.
At home, too. Yeah, it's huge.
Sick. And, I mean, we don't even have to say, like, we're having Notre Dame at home on November 1st. That's fantastic. They're all going to be weekend games. Another big note is that the Thanksgiving game is an away game, so we don't have to deal with an empty alumni there either.
Big.
People critiquing the early bye, but I honestly love where it's placed. We're going to go to the West Coast for the first time ever, going to Stanford and then Cal, so you kind of fit that bye in between that to make that travel a lot easier on the team. I think that's a great bye. I know people are critiquing it because it's like early in the year. I think that's great. It gives them a little more breathing room with that travel to the West Coast. I love the schedule. I love everything about it. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on it coming out last night?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, the thing about the bye, I also agree with you, Mac. I think the bye after the West Coast trip is good. I think the second bye, the week 13 or whatever, is a little late because then you got like 6-7 games straight, which is more my critique there. But I mean, that's so small in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love it. I mean, you mentioned the Clemson, Notre Dame, SMU all at home. You got to get one of those. You just got to get one of those.
Have to.
I think that's awesome. Even like the out of conference, like you host like a Jesuit school in Fordham to open it off. You know, you host a Big Ten. You're going to a Big Ten school. You're hosting Notre Dame, who's in the national championship. Regional rival in UConn. You're hosting them. So I think they nailed that. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the schedule. Their first trip out west to Stanford, where hopefully they'll pick up a big win against their new rival or their new conference opponent. But yeah, 10 out of 10. I love the schedule. I wish I was a student. I wish this was the schedule when I was a student.
Yeah,
but,
seriously.
Yeah, it's a great schedule.
And I love the I said it on the pre-show. The Syracuse to end the season. I think Syracuse should be the last. Yeah. And it used to be for the longest time. Syracuse to end the year. You know, that's kind of like your de facto rival. You know, I would say that's what you can make the biggest case to be like a peer rival school, and having that as like the last game of the season. You know, if you could get back to alternating that home and away every single year for the last game of the season, I think that's a nice bow to put on a season on any given year. So I do really like that. The one Jack, I know you kind of put out your way too early win loss thing.
Yeah, I did.
The only one that I would give pushback on, which you could hit the nail on the head with it, would be the Louisville. And I think you said that would be a loss.
Yeah, I think Stanford, Louisville, Clemson, and SMU is my losses.
Yeah, and that's the only one that I think I could see myself flipping to a win. You know, but for all intents and purposes, you know, there's other wins that I'm sure I could flip into. But so very nitpicky there. But I think you're very on track with 8-4 regular season as like a very feasible, legit possibility. I think that if you asked me now, I'd probably say the 8-4 projection would probably align with kind of where I'm at. And then if you could bake in like a nice signature win, because I think last year's signature win ended up being a very fake signature win.
Yeah.
The opener.
Top 10. BC beats a top 10 opponent.
Maybe a bottom
you know,
10. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough when they finish the year, 2-8 after the fact. So it's a tough signature win to have. But yeah, I think if they can get a nice signature win out of those three, you have three opponents, all three of them are at home. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Having the Michigan State game there, that's going to be a ton of fun as well.
Yeah.
You always
That's gonna be tough. Week 2.
Yeah.
Right? That'll be a tough.
Yeah.
Good test. It's a good early test for them.
That's a fun game.
Great road test.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun game, and that'll be an early litmus test. I think to really see kind of where they're at and what kind of season you're going to have. And then you have the two cupcakes, or I hope they're cupcakes. The UConn the last couple of years.
UConn won 9 games last year, man. Be careful.
Yeah. So that's not really a cupcake per se. Hopefully BC can continue their dominance outside of 2022. But even 2023, it was a close game. It wasn't a blow up by any means at home. Is that's at home?
UConn's the upset alert because it sits in between Clemson. It sits in between Clemson and Louisville. I mean, for me, that's like an upset alert type of game where you have at home. Everyone expects you to beat UConn. It's a total BC trap game. You know what I mean? You got a bunch of
coach. Probably slept on.
Yeah, Fenway. They won the Fenway Bowl, right?
Yeah, I think they crushed UNC.
Yeah. So Fenway Bowl.
UNC sucked last year, but yeah.
We'll see what Belichick does with that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I did do my predictions. I can probably read them off right now. But I think 8-4 is probably it's maybe slightly optimistic given it's a harder schedule than last year.
Sure.
I think it's realistic. I think it's realistic for sure. Yeah, so I had Fordham win, Michigan State win away. Good litmus test, tough road game. Stanford, I penciled in as a loss. I said as a loss because the first. My reasoning was it's the first trip out west. Against a lesser opponent, I can see them looking past it. But I'm pretty sure Stanford. I'm pretty sure Stanford sucks. So I mean, that probably should be a win. They went 3-9 last year. They'll probably be just as bad this year. Cal Pitt. I think Cal I have as a win at home. Pitt away is a tough one. I think I have that as a win. And then tough little stretch here, or tough 5-week stretch. You have Clemson. I have as a loss. UConn, that trap game, Mac. You said I have a win. Louisville, I penciled in as a loss. Tough team, but could go either way. That one's away. It could be kind of tough. But we'll see. I mean, by that point, we'll know a lot more about the team than we do now, obviously. Notre Dame, I have as the one win out of the 3 college football playoff teams. I think for it to be a true kind of step forward, they have to win one of those 3 games. They just have to. They need to show they can. They need to show they can, defend alumni against an elite team. And I really want to beat Notre Dame. So I have that as a win.
That's good wishful thinking.
I like this.
SMU at home, I have as a loss. Although, we only beat them this year away. So I could totally see Notre Dame and SMU flipping there. And then Georgia Tech. That's away. I literally have no idea how good they are. I have that as a win though. And then Cuse away, I have as a win. So I think 8-4 is realistic goal, slightly optimistic, but definitely attainable for this team.
Absolutely.
But I mean, they could surprise us with win over Notre Dame, win over Louisville. All of a sudden we're 10-2. So we'll see.
I agree with the goal being 8 wins, where you can try to basically what you said, Jack. I totally agree with. It can be switched up, but I think the goal and the expectation for year 2 for Bill is let's get to 8 wins in the regular season. So I tweeted out last night, and again, I could be, who knows, maybe we only go 3-2, but I think there's a real shot of going 5-0 into that Clemson game. So I think there's to
Totally.
be optimistic here, like being 5-0, maybe you're a top 25, top 20 team going into Clemson. I mean, when you look at the first 3 games, Fordham's going to be a win. Michigan State is your first big test. I think that's probably on paper, your hardest test of the first 5 games. You go there, if you handle business on the road, that's why I kind of agree with your just like random take of like losing to Stanford, Jack, because you then go right from Michigan State to Stanford, right? You got to go all the way to the West Coast. Stanford has always been that upset team. I've watched too many Pac-12 games to just
maybe
take
Syracuse last year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're always a smart team. They always have their system. They always have a great offensive line, and they run the ball well. So there you
Andrew
go.
Luck's involved there again, I think.
Exactly. But you always have a
I think he
chance
is,
there.
yeah.
California, I was very scared of California last year, but of course, their starting quarterback goes to Indiana.
Mendoza's gone. They still have a good running back. But,
They have their star running back, but you kind of feel a lot more being back at home with Cal. You're looking forward to that game. And then Pitt, I think, I think they're overrated. But again, Pittsburgh's one of those teams where we know the least about. I mean, they're going to be a completely different team next year. So
they were 7-0 to start the year.
Yeah, and then they
7-5, 7-6.
Last 6 games.
Yeah.
Well, we beat them. I think. Sorry to interrupt, but
You're
think
You're good.
Whoever that quarterback, because they changed quarterbacks during that season. I think if nothing else changes now, he would be their starter. I think it was Holstein. Was it Eli Holstein?
Right.
Or Yarnell. I forget which one, but one of those two, I think would presumably be the starter unless they bring in a whole new crew. But yeah, that's why I mean I have marked down as a win. I don't think they're gonna be that good. But I mean obviously a lot can change. So
yeah, it'll be interesting.
You see the opportunities like potential to start out really well, and then you go into that. I agree with you, Jack. Like those 3 college football playoff teams, you got to win one, right? If you're taking that next level up, you got to steal one at least. And your hope as a BC fan, you're like, okay, Notre Dame would be the one that everyone's choosing over Clemson and SMU. You're going for that. And then I agree with Brett too. Closing the game, the season with Syracuse every year to kind of help that regional kind of matchup, I do like. So I had top to bottom. I love this schedule. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah,
7 home games. And then every away game is fun. Like if you want to go to Michigan State, fantastic environment. You want to go to Palo Alto at Stanford, fantastic. You want to go take the road trip to Pitt, great. Louisville, great fans, and then you go to Cuse. I mean, this whole schedule. I mean, you could go to every single game.
Yeah, the away games are pretty cool.
Yeah, yep.
I'm definitely very satisfied. And then shout out media, BC Media. I feel like the past 2 or 3 years they have been absolutely rocking.
So original
graphics and everything else. Yeah, their graphics they're very good. I love I think last year when they released the schedule, it was like VHS tapes or cassette tapes or something. And
that's cool.
Now they're throwing up the pennants, which is just like another pretty cool
the
old school touch. Yeah, I think I love anytime the schedule is kind of released and the Interfanning News always going to kind of map out what your I guess like in your eyes what the most successful season's going to be. And I do think that the 8-4, 9-3, I think that those records, I think it is in there, and I think you can see the path to those. And I don't think that it's like unreasonable or just being like kind of like a blind biased type of fan to really point those out. I think it is going to be, and it's like you both said it, are they going to be able to get to that next level in order to get there? Because it's if they do get to the 8 wins mark, it's not going to be because they had an easy schedule, like years in the past, or like other teams have had where you can literally stumble into 8 wins because the schedule is that easy. This is a difficult schedule. It's a challenge. I wouldn't say difficult. Yes, it's challenging. It's a challenging schedule. Anytime you have 3, college football playoff teams on the docket, that's a next level difficulty. But the luck here is I don't know. The scheduling gods must have been looking out for us to get all 3 of them, aligned for home. That's huge. So I'm very, very satisfied with it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's nice. It's back to back years that we're going to have kind of like, I think this past year was a fun schedule too, with the Missouri game sprinkled in there. Michigan State game was the red bandana game at home. So I do think that there'll be a lot of fun games. And speaking of which, I'm curious as to what the red bandana game will be this year. I'm guessing it'll be a little bit later, probably in October.
I was thinking
it'd be UConn.
Yeah, UConn,
like
maybe
Clemson.
Cal. Could be Clemson. I feel like Clemson would be a good one. It's usually what Clemson
Clemson night game at a long night. I just remember that back in, what was that, 2018, the kickoff return or punt return.
Michael Walker.
Yeah. That would be
punt return.
You got to look at the October 11 schedule too. Like, say BC does start out 5-0, and of course we're talking Delulu land right now. But is there any other big games? Is like game day come to BC on October 11th?
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, Delulu is always welcome on the show. So I feel like it's very it's always a topic of conversation. And I don't think that it's like crazy to say that. I think you can,
especially it is red bandana game. That would be.
Yeah, I think you can talk about. I don't necessarily think that the 5-0 start is like a definite or highly feasible, but I think it's possible. I think it's definitely on the table. Sure. I think that but I think as long time BC followers, we all know that there's going to be a hiccup in at least one of those games. I think 4-1 is probably way more reasonable, but 5-0 is definitely possible for this team, and the way the schedule is lined up. So I wouldn't like brush that aside or say that that's like it's definitely not crazier than some takes that I've thrown out there in the past. So
I think we'll know a lot more about this team coming off that Michigan State game.
Agreed.
Fordham, your week 1 FCS opponent. You should crush them 45-14 or something. But yeah, traveling to Michigan State, they're not like a Big Ten powerhouse or anything, but it's an away game and in a Big Ten environment. I think we'll find out how realistic 5-0, 4-1 that stretch is. And if you come off 2-0, then you got Stanford, the California schools who you both should beat. I mean, who's to say what happens? But so I think that Michigan State game will be a big marker, definitely early on.
The cool thing about having Fordham in the first game is like that's the Dylan Lonergan game, right? Whoever starts that game, you expect to see a lot of Dylan Lonergan, and you expect Bill to try and put him into that offense and see what he can do. Because even if Grayson starts and you go up, 24-0, you're trying to get Lonergan in there as soon as possible to see what he can do. Or say he wins the battle over the offseason, right? You start Lonergan, and then you really get to see that offense against a lesser opponent and flesh that out.
Absolutely.
I mean, again, even if it's the Fordham game, you're excited because you're there to watch the quarterback and kind of see who's going to kind of take that QB1 spot.
Yeah,
that'd be good to see.
We've fallen into Jack Cyberlick territory now, I think.
Unfortunately, we have. Talking about this now 9-11, 1-8 in the ACC basketball team. Not many highlights this year. One of the few highlights is from this past week turned out to be the biggest low light of them all in nearly upsetting UNC just to choke it right at the end. Some coaching blunders.
Multiple.
Multiple, yeah, down the stretch. I mean, the 5-second call when you have a timeout in your pocket is just inexcusable. But yeah, I mean, you blew
Crazy
games to
media.
Syracuse and UNC.
Yeah, the crazy
Yeah,
media going
they're
huge.
yeah. I'm getting headhunted by the BC State media, big BC.
What
No, but seriously, I think yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask you, the the end of the game was, did they turn the ball in the press? Was it 4 times in a row that they turned it over? Was it something like that?
No, it was they were up 89-85. I think
Okay.
Josh Beal hit a big floater, and I want to say that was with. Let me pull the play-by-play. I want to say that was with 18, not like 20, like 30 seconds left. They're up
Okay.
4. They give up. I think Deion Brown fouls out, is shooting foul. So then they hit both free throws, cut it to 2. They can't get the
Okay.
ball in, can't get the ball in. They use one of their timeouts, and then they have a side out. They can't get the ball and can't get the ball in. Earl has a timeout, doesn't call it for whatever reason. You get the 5-second call, and then UNC forces overtime, and then from there, that was kind of wraps. Donald Hand played so well during this game. He's had 26 points on efficient shooting.
Mhm.
Deion Brown had his not his one good game this season, but he was the Deion Brown that was recruited to BC. He had 20 points on efficient shooting, played great defense.
Mm-hmm.
Venning was awesome. Venning, I have my doubts about him coming to the year, but against UNC and Duke, he's been kind of like, borderline like unstoppable in the post. Not saying he's like
He
quitting
has
post or anything, but
he has been
he's
good.
a lot better than I thought. So he's one. Those are the kind of the 3 bright spots. I will say I didn't think this Earl seat would get as hot as it has this season, but
This quickly, yeah.
we're 1-8. We got 11 games to go. Who knows how many games we win from here on out?
Mhm.
So I don't know. I've completely given up on my miles for every win. I've been
Yeah.
done that about a month.
Yeah. Nor should you.
Yeah, I mean, seriously.
You're out of shape now waiting. So at least
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, I should write him a note like, "Hey, I'm putting on some pounds here. I need to win, fellas."
Yeah, it's been a while.
But yeah, I did. I will say we were talking about this before the show. They played UVA, so they beat Miami. That's their 1 ACC win. Miami's winless in the conference. UVA is the one worse than BC before. They were tied with BC in the standings. So it was a winnable game. And then UVA, of course, they won by 20. And it was notable. Blake James traveled with the team to I don't know if that was a coincidence, him
I
going
saw
to
that.
Virginia with them, but I don't know what conversations he's having with Earl regarding his future with the program because he does have an extension through 2028 or 29, I think. So
Mhm.
it's a hard one to buy yourself out of if you're Blake. You're kind of hands are a bit tied if you want to move on from Earl. That is.
Right.
So I still,
And
even at this
he didn't
point,
give him the extension, I don't think either.
Did he not? I forget who. It was after his second year, which I thought was Blake's first year.
So maybe it was him that gave it to him. Maybe it was.
I have to check that. So yeah, I mean, if you're Blake James, you're kind of in a tough spot here with Earl's contract.
Mhm.
But yeah, I did do it. I asked the question to Earl about his future with the program. Was not well received. Earl in the moment answered it well, but the department did not appreciate it, of course, as I'm sure
Mhm.
no one does. But yeah, so I mean, there's definitely those seeds of doubt out there, around the program and probably within the program.
Mhm.
People are talking about, talks going on behind the scenes. So, if I had to venture to guess, I probably still would guess that Earl's the coach next year. But it would not surprise me at all it would have surprised me before the season if he got fired this year. But at this point, it would not surprise me if
I will
the
say the note
administration
is
moves on from him.
Blake James did announce he's signed through the 28-29 season.
Okay, so it was.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tough. Tough for Blake when we were singing his praises earlier. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's tough to blame him for that.
Tough
He
one,
had
yeah.
No,
you
can't.
that year felt like he was building something, but
Progress
Yep.
year.
I don't know.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
it was premature at the time, probably because he was already signed through 26. So I don't think you really needed to if you're him. But yeah, tough spot for
Yeah.
the program right now. You know, not
I-
too many
I-
positives to draw from.
I do have a couple thoughts on this. I feel like I've been a little outspoken in my thoughts on this team. Maybe from like a media perspective, there's probably opinions that I probably should keep to myself, but it is hard to do so when you are you're a fan and you kind of do devote like so much time and effort like to this team, so it is hard to not show your displeasure. But and I think back to last year at Providence. Was talking to Dan Rubin about this. So, and I very much, this is exactly how I felt too. So I was glad that, he kind of reiterated that last year's output should have been the output of the Mackay year. And then last year's output should have been a tournament team. So I think that they should have made, they should have had like that, winning record, NIT with Mackay. And then last year should have been the tournament team.
Yeah,
And
they were just
it's
they were just a step behind. You know, I mean,
yes, each
you,
year
and
was
you
a
look
step
at
behind.
and you look at where those guys are now, like Quentin
Yep,
Posts.
yep,
He's
yep.
putting
It's that
he's in the rotation for the Warriors right now.
that's very hard to
Yeah,
watch, and I'm
and then you
very
got
happy for him.
Jay-Z starting on a 19th ranked Clemson, Claudel starting on a 15th ranked Mississippi State.
Yeah,
Glock is starting on a 24th ranked, 23rd, whatever ranked Vanderbilt, who's
they
been
beat
revived.
number 6. They beat number 6 Tennessee as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, the SEC is just ridiculous. I mean, they're
It's
gonna have
just
13 bids in the tournament this year, so
it's fucking it's hard to watch, and it's
yeah,
hard to say. So that brings me to some other points that I have, and everyone has their own opinion, and I very much value and respect that. But it's hard to, when you bring that up, to talk about the success that our former players are having with other teams. And
Mhm.
it just sucks to think that like collectively, they were like a step below what they should have been. For me, that's coaching, and it's
yeah,
very evident, especially when you see, the lack of offensive sets, offensive philosophies, out of timeout plays that they run, under the basket plays that they run, and it's just very void of that. So it brings it to coaching, and I think coaching honestly cost them 2 or 3 regular season wins. Like everyone, the Earl Truthers, which I'm not
there's not
one.
many of them. There's not many of them,
No,
dude.
there's
Who?
very few, but there's the Earl
There might just be
Truthers out.
one. Yeah,
Yeah, Britty is the one Earl
we
Truther, which I still can't stand, but that's okay. He's I'm sure he's a nice guy, but the thing is like he sticks to this thing of they won 20 games last year. But the thing is like they should have won 20
they should have won
regular season
24.
games.
They should have, yeah,
Yes. Yeah, agreed.
In the
They should
tournament.
have won 20 plus in the regular season. Not
Yeah.
that the first round of the ACC is like a ACC tournament, it's like a gimme game. When you look at it, and then they were, Clemson was checked out. They were ready for the tournament, and then Providence didn't have Devin Carter and barely beat them. And whatever, that's besides the point. The point is that I almost feel like coaching, it kept them from a good, conservatively, 2 to 3 extra wins, realistically like 4 to 5 wins from a regular season perspective. And the other thing I will say,
Mhm.
for this person who I just named earlier, talks about the disloyalty to Earl and how the players were disloyal, and how Glock left, after Earl developed him, after Claudel left, after Jay-Z left, and how dare these kids go out and get paid? And there's nothing BC could have done. Well, I think the real problem is because I have it on good authority that Glock is making about 250, and there's someone else who is like right about the same. And I have it on good authority that Dion Brown is making about 200 to 250, and Josh Beadle is making 200. And they were both brought in before, the mass exodus. So it's my understanding that it was the coaching staff who ultimately elected to bring in these
Yeah.
guys over
They
the
chose
current
they
players.
chose who they wanted to pay. Totally.
Correct. And it seems like they chose wrong. And so my biggest takeaway from this now is it's kind of a lack of talent evaluation, right? Like the talent evaluation isn't the best. And we've seen this in the past, with our now friend or now former friend, Prince, the Prince. And I'm very actually a quick side note on him. I'm very happy that he is finding, a bit of success over at Seton Hall.
Seton
I
Hall stinks, by the
genuinely,
way. They're terrible.
yeah, I know, but I genuinely, I'm happy that he is. I know you tweeted out that he had his career high in points. Since his Cornell debut, which it makes I'm just happy that he is finding a little bit of success. But for him, he was heralded as his 4-star, was jammed into the starting lineup, shouldn't have been in the starting lineup last year, was still in the starting. So it's the talent evaluation there is just it's so off, and there's so many other guys who it's kind of like what did you see that you that we're not seeing as fans? Why is this guy playing? Why is this guy getting minutes? Why is this guy on the team? And now
Right.
it's kind of coming to its head where it's like there's a good 5 or 6 guys on the roster who are rotation players that are getting quite a few minutes on the team that probably shouldn't even be playing in ACC basketball. And it does come back to the talent thing. The last point I want to make. Watching Quentin Post be as good as he is very difficult. It almost gives me like PTSD when he had the 5 or 6 threes in the game a week ago, and it made me very upset to see that because God damn it, I fucking miss him a ton. and
I know.
and it's like how was this guy on a 17? I refuse to look at it like they were 17 or 20 and 16. Like, give me a fucking break. How are they 17 and 14 and 8 and 12 in ACC play with Quentin Post on that team? It just is egregious to me and makes me sad when you have a 7-foot unicorn who can shoot threes and hit them at such a high clip. And now he's doing very well in the NBA after tearing up the G League, and but Earl developed him, so that's why we should keep Earl. I guess is the Earl Truthers point. I don't see it, but yeah, I think this long-winded charade by me was just to say I really miss Quentin Post, and I'm sad. I'm just sad about that. That was so fun last year, by the way, Jack.
Watching QP, especially out of conference when we didn't when the tournament was still a possibility, was so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
But yes, to some points that you made, about like the in-game stuff with Earl is, that's always, that has been tough where like I can point to off the top of my head, NC State for the first time, Wake, those first 2 ACC games should have been wins. Both Florida State games, the UVA game.
Yeah.
They were all like 1-possession games that probably you win if you have a better offensive system. It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys nailed.
And with sorry, one more thing.
Very good.
With the talent evaluation thing, like I my thing with Earl, like I defended him longer than I think most people did,
Yeah, you
because I
did.
see like he brought he brought in QP, brought in Jay-Z, brought in Claudel, brought in Mason, brought in these guys, and so I don't know what happened, what the disconnect is to where he just chooses Deion Brown, Josh Beal over these guys. Like he clearly saw the
Mhm.
talent. He saw these guys play with him for 2-3 years, and
Yeah.
I have no idea like what he saw in. I mean, I know what he saw in Deion Brown. He saw a guy dominate the American, which you know, but yeah. So it's baffling how he seemed to be a great recruiter, great talent evaluator of like diamonds in the rough 2 years ago, and now he's so willing to ship those guys off and bring in
Mhm.
clearly lesser talented players. So I mean, that's just tough to comprehend. And I mean, I certainly can't ask him about this stuff because I'm blacklisted. But I mean,
Sure are.
it's tough
Jack,
to find out exactly what he's thinking on these things. So we might never know, but yeah, state
I
of the
have,
program it's tough, man.
What about real quick before you go, Mac?
yeah,
I forgot to mention Bickerstaff. I mean, he lets Bickerstaff go. Bickerstaff
right.
becomes a huge piece of the JMU team, and
Yeah,
for some
Bickerstaff.
reason he
Forgot
was,
about that name.
and Jack is a very courageous, upstanding individual. Let me just put that first and foremost. And I don't think Jack gets enough credit for the courage that he displays.
Oh, thank you.
He's currently blacklisted for asking a question. That was very fair.
Eagles
Um,
Daily. Let's go.
Jack also was laughed at. He was laughed at last year when he brought up TJ Bickerstaff and whether TJ Bickerstaff would be productive on this team. I forget who it was over, Bickerstaff or somebody else, and a lot of people laughed at you for that poll question.
Yeah, I forget who it was,
Was
but
it Prince?
it might have been Prince.
I forget
I
who it
forget. I'll have to
was.
find it, but I mean,
Yeah, you were laughed at for that.
the one thing that held that team back specifically was just front court depth. I mean,
Hmm.
we had Armani Muddy coming in to play like real minutes, and Armani Muddy should never been touching that court or that
It might
team.
have been Armani Mighty.
Yeah, which in that case that should have been 100% in favor of TJ Bickerstaff. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean TJ Bickerstaff could never shoot worth a shit, but he could always rebound. He could always you know
Right.
be a competent player. So I mean, we're getting in the
Yeah.
weeds here about TJ Bickerstaff, but
That's a
But
great
yeah,
weeds to get in.
another example of a guy, Earl brought in from Drexel, believed in clearly, and then I don't know what happened. He went off to JMU, but
All about.
balled out. Yeah, so good for him. Got to the tournament before the Boston College Eagle did. So
You guys obviously are the BC baller. I go to you guys for information, but I have two questions kind of based off what you guys.
Unfortunately.
I'd say I think you guys nailed it as far as like the big critique of Grant is you see Post balling out in the NBA. You see our entire starting lineup like in top 25 teams all across the country now. So like clearly like the performance last year based on talent was below par. And then you kind of looking at this year, and this is my question, I guess, is I would say the critique comes from not just losing, but the way they're losing. I mean, you look at they are able to battle UNC, they're able to, play toe to toe with Duke in the first half. They have the talent potentially there. Is it really I think the biggest critique comes down, and let me know if I'm wrong on this, is the in-game decisions, the calling a timeout and creating set plays, and just the clear coachable things that you see across the country with great teams is that they have elite coaches that can manage these situations so well for their players. And I'd say two questions is the first one, is that really the answer there? Is that it's the way they're losing, not that they're losing? And then the second question is there any chance that we are wrong with Grant? Because it seems to me that the consensus is, that we need to fire Earl or move on from Earl, and people are kind of waiting for that to happen. Obviously, you guys have also mentioned he's been able to bring in and recruit the right players. Maybe he's not been able to retain them. And they all have shown they have talent there, but the coaching decisions in game and timeouts and all those things aren't good. Like that's, I guess the question is that really the situation where it's just the in-game coaching is bad, but like we're keeping him straight up for his ability to assess talent, or kind of get me to understand more from an outsider where that kind of sits. And if there is any chance that the fans might be wrong on this, then we got to give Earl more of a shot, because that is the decision Blake is dealing with right now. Do we kind of go down this for a little bit longer, or do we make the call right now?
So I forget your first question, so I'll answer your second question very real quickly. I don't think that it's, I don't think that there's any reason to hold on to Earl, or like any reason to like let him continue, just based on
It's
the
about six.
patterns.
There's 6 million reasons not to. It's his buyout.
Right. Yeah, that's like literally about it. I would say when you look at his first 2 years, it was pretty obvious that he was like building towards something. And then last year, it was kind of like the apex of his success. Whereas like now we're like restarting. For me, like as a follower of the team and the program, it's tough to kind of get behind that. Okay, so we're gonna have like a rebuild every 3 to 4 years, where like maybe you have a good season in that third or fourth year. It's tough to swallow, especially when it's like an NIT bid, and it's like almost like a gimme NIT bid, where like they kind of changed the rules to where that's kind of why BC even got in the NIT last year, because they really probably didn't exactly deserve to get in to begin with. That's besides the point. But yeah, so it's kind of tough to have these like cycles of that, and there really isn't a lot to really base on the fact that Earl kind of is the guy that you want kind of building up. It's almost like he's kind of lost his his swagger in regards to that, where like maybe when he was like this new kind of hot coach coming in, and people were kind of willing to like believe him and take the chance, whereas now it's kind of the proof's in the pudding. So he's really not getting like the Jay-Z's and the Claudells to kind of hop on board to change it. You kind of saw that this year, where it was like, the Josh Beatles of the world, and the Deion Browns, but it really didn't work out well. But so it's just it is hard. And it goes back to the point of like he was building something for 3 years, so you were kind of willing to give him a pass, and you could kind of see the vision. Whereas like now you look at it and you're like, what the fuck is this? And where are we going with this? And, this is just going to keep getting worse. I don't really have a lot of faith that he's going to be able to build out of this, and as a supporter of BC basketball, I'm really not interested in a guy who's going to give you, one good season out of 3 or 4, and you're going to have to build up to that every year. I want a coach where it's kind of more sustainable. A lot, I know we kind of talking a lot about Kim English and Providence. I think it's Jack kind of follows them a little bit, as do I. And, we both kind of respect, what they've been able to do over there at PC. Yeah. And I think that they are in terms of basketball, kind of like a peer institution as to what you can be. And just so, I think for that, to be able to see a program achieve sustainable success, that's what you're looking for, not really kind of like we're gonna build up and our best season is gonna be, and even if it was an NCAA berth last year, I still don't think that that's good enough, to where it's like what you're gonna have a tournament berth every 4 years. That's kind of your goal, to be an ACC team and have that be the vision for the program. I just don't think it's good enough. And I don't think that he's done a good enough job. And, Jack will speak on this. The in-game stuff is egregious. And I think that alone shows you what he is as a coach. It's not like he's a great in-game coach and, they're snake bitten or anything. What he is as a coach is what he is as a coach. And, it's a lot of the times it's really not fun basketball to watch either. It's not like it's not a fun watch. It really isn't. It hasn't been. So
it's a bad product right now. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, Mac, I actually did remember your first question, so I'll speak to that. Just kidding, Brett. It's about him as like I mean, the in-game stuff is clearly his weakness as a coach. Like his refusal to call, stop opponent momentum. He doesn't seem to have a great feel for when a team's on a run to call timeout. His offense just relies way too much on guys hitting tough shots, and this year he hasn't really this year especially just doesn't have the personnel to do that. I mean, the offense creates like literally no open looks. I think where you see these guys when they hang in for a half of Duke or hang in with UNC, I for everything you say about Earl as an in-game coach, as a evaluator of talent this past year, I don't doubt him as like a man or a motivator. I think he gets his guys up to play, especially against a guy like a. It's weird. I think he gets his guys up to play when literally they have no business being in a game, a la UNC or Duke. Like he gets them up for those games, which is like, I don't know. It's a weird kind of thing. So I don't know what the psychology is there. But yeah, and then speaking like bigger picture, I think his ceiling as a coach has been reached, and that's leading guys to the second round of the NIT. And I think he was brought into the program. Like I think when Pat Kraft hired him, I guess 3-4 years ago, he never thought Earl Grant was going to lead Boston College to the Final Four. He thought, this could be a guy where he can like get us relevant again, get us back to the tournament, or get us back being competitive. And I think since he didn't do that in year 2, year 3, then now that those guys are gone, like now you're left with, scraps, and his offense. It's not conducive to much, but it's especially not conducive to guys that can't hit tough shots, and you're outside down hand. You don't really have that this year. So I think my stance on it is we've seen Earl's ceiling as a coach at BC, and it's just not where we need to be. So I think Blake extended this guy by 3 years more than he probably should have. So he kind of tied himself into a tough spot here, or dug himself a hole where he needs to decide if he's willing to go to the board and say, hey, like we got to buy out our basketball coach. And really, like, it's coming to BC is a tough job. I mean, perennial bottom third of the ACC. Like, you're not going to get a coach like Rick Pitino knocking on your door. You're going to need to take a chance on the guy in the realm of Kim English, who, by the way, might be 2 years away from being in Earl's position based on this year, but we'll see. But a guy like Mary Max has they got Joe Gallo, who's up and coming in New England, or St. Bonaventure has.
Name.
Yeah, I know, I love it too. The Bonnies have Mark Schmidt, who's a BC alum. Like, there's guys out there like with BC connections, but you're not gonna get a Patino and a Cooley, Shaka Smart, Bill Self. You're not gonna get a Bill O'Brien-esque hire knocking your door.
Right.
So it's a tough spot for the administration, especially to decide, are we going to pay $6 million to take a chance on a guy who's unproven at the Power 5 level? It's tough, and that's the decision that Blake James is going to face this year.
Clear replacement. It kind of makes like, why would you spend that money to do it? Right?
And that'll be what the fourth. That'll be the fourth time that they're going to take a chance on someone.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Earl before Earl's Christian, before Christian is Donahue. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'd be their fourth time going after a lower level guy to prove himself that he can be successful at this level. And you're putting him way behind the 8 ball, because not only is he trying to prove himself at this level, but it's BC and the ACC. It's not very good.
I mean, it's not. That's not to say it's impossible. I mean, you saw Louisville.
No.
Louisville brought in Pat Kelsey. They sucked the last 3 years under Kenny Payne, and now they're ranked 21st. They're up 24 against Wake Forest at halftime. Like, that happens, and that's the kind of thing that it's not impossible. I mean, Louisville, BC, not exactly the same situation, but
No, but
Um,
I do get your point.
but yeah,
It
those
is,
kind of things can happen, and so that's
yeah,
Blake's decision
I
ultimately.
feel like we're in like the worst position as a fan and as media covering this, where there's a clear issue, and I think the clear, solution, a part of the solution is getting rid of Earl. But then the second part of the solution, which you need to do that, no one knows. Like
Yeah,
getting who's coming in, but not even just the head coach. Like how much firepower is behind that? How much does Blake James have to bring in someone and give assets to a staff and NIL and all that? It's like there's so many questions to that solution, and it's frustrating because you're like we're in one of the worst places right now for that program.
hmm
It doesn't look like there's that many answers, and there's so many questions and challenges to kind of overcome here.
yeah,
yeah, and it's a you know it's an unfortunate because I think with Earl there was a lot of, I don't want to say hype, but I think a lot of people were kind of excited to kind of see
yeah.
what he
I
was
mean,
going to do. I think there
I
was
will
a lot of
say, I think
belief.
he totally overachieved his first year. I think he probably, might have, he won 9-11 in the ACC his second year. He
Yeah,
shit the bed out of conference, but that was very close to being a year where you make the NIT, and all of a sudden, I mean, so the signs were there in the first
yeah,
2 years,
yeah.
so that's why it's
I
tough.
think
So
it started to sour last year in conference play because it
yeah,
was like
when we
it
were
was
like
like
we were like two and
it was
six or
like
whatever,
flipped.
and
Yeah,
it's
it was like
so
flipped where it was like they were terrible out of conference, overachieved in conference for expectations wise.
mm,
And then last year they were great out of conference and you thought, okay, like they kind of turned that around. They went 9-2. They didn't have the stupid fucking losses, the UNHs and the mains and stuff like that. They didn't have those like dumb out of conference losses.
yeah, they
Now
just
ACC
dominated
plays.
the bottom of
y-
the ACC. They didn't have any like signature
Yeah,
wins the way you had 2 years
nope.
ago, so
Nope.
or two
And
seasons
all and
before.
all
So
and all their losses were like by 10 or less predominantly. So it was like they were competitive, but they weren't able to win those games. So it was tough. It was a tough watch.
yeah,
And yeah, I mean
and
that's
there's only so much time you could spend dwelling on it on a podcast.
I
yeah,
So
just, I just
yeah,
feel so bad. I just feel so bad for like all the students, and this has gone on for like over a decade now, where they
oh yeah.
haven't been able to experience like just content. Like when you looked at the Duke game, like that's how it's supposed to be. Every ACC game, it's like you Phil Conti, and you get to experience that. That was like one of the best experiences as a kid, going to Conte Forum and watching like Jared Dudley play
Yeah,
and ball
but
out. It's
the
like,
but Mac, the problem was and I agree with you, having like a
yeah,
packed Connie is fun, but I was at that game, with my girlfriend and it it was like 70-30. It was
yeah, it's
Duke.
all Duke fans, and
It was all Duke fans, yeah. So like that's another kind of tough
thing.
look.
We
But
haven't seen a BC filled like Conte, unless you're going to hockey games, which we're going to talk
yeah,
about. And like, it's just you haven't experienced that as students, like for BC basketball.
yeah,
And so you kill the fan culture and community there when it comes to an entire program that was
mhm,
once like one of the dominant ones in the region, like and a consistent
yeah.
one. Yeah.
In regards to the hockey, I just I'm gonna swear again. I know this is a family show. I don't have a ton of insight. We still, by the way, we need to get Anthony on the show to talk
Yeah, we gotta
hockey.
get Anthony on next time.
Shout out Anthony, that's our guy. Um,
yeah.
the only thing I'll really say about hockey, Ryan Leonard's fucking good. Ryan Leonard's real fucking good.
Ryan Leonard's good. Gabe Perreault's good. James
So
Hagan is
good.
good. Jacob
Yeah,
Fowler's good. Teddy State. Yeah,
yeah,
they're stacked this year.
I mean,
And
I think they might be great because number one team right now in college hockey, man. I think this
yeah,
yeah.
this team is it better than last year? Like we're still figuring that out, but I feel like this is just like, I mean, it's a great team. This has just been
yeah.
if
I
you're
mean,
a hockey
yeah, coming off sweeps against Providence last weekend, BU this past weekend. Uh,
sweeps.
I mean, I think, based on what I've heard, from I don't follow it super closely, but they're like last year's team, this year's team, they're all-time great teams, and I think
Mhm.
next season or two, their classes aren't as great. So I think this is really the year to really finish the job for them. So
Mhm.
I think there is that sort of pressure existing, especially after losing the Natty last year, which is so tough to Denver. Um, but yeah, this is it's a fun team. They pack Conti. They line up 5 hours before puck drop.
So
So it's good to see Conti actually fill up. So
yeah, it's
yeah,
good to
we
see that
gotta
it
have
still
Anthony
can.
on to see. Yeah, we gotta have Anthony on to do these guys justice. I mean, we've said it like every pod for the past since the
I'll
season
text
started.
them.
But yeah,
I'll text them when we wrap up here, and I'll ask him if he can
yeah,
come on next week,
yeah, for
and
sure.
we'll
Yeah,
do like a big hockey thing, because I think it's
yeah,
important. I think
I
you
agree.
know I almost feel fraudulent, like, because they're so fucking good, and because I've been so locked in on football and basketball all these years, and I've always like followed the hockey team, and I definitely root for them, and I did some stuff for the media wise on hockey last year, um, but I would be such a fraud to say I'm this like huge hockey guy when I'm I very closely follow a middling to bad college basketball team when we have the number
yeah,
one hockey team in the country. And I don't know why I don't give more attention to hockey.
yeah,
Maybe I should, but
Say, man,
you
I feel
know,
like I don't follow hockey. That I used to be when I was like a kid, like a big Bruins fan. But
insane.
even now, like I don't watch the Bruins. It's football and baseball and basketball. Like
And that's it.
yeah.
That's all I have bandwidth for.
Did you guys see this for the second BU game where they won 2-0? The BU had a new goalie and he did the whole
Yeah.
like rookie skate and then he got
Oh yeah,
called
that
for a
was
penalty.
huge.
So this, yeah,
Yeah.
that
They
was a funny
scored,
kind of
right?
controversy. No, they scored 24 seconds of the game on that power play, so that's why
I
they won
And
one
they
actually,
nothing.
yeah,
I
And the
feel like
and
I
they
coach,
see
won 1-0 or
I
two
see
yeah,
nothing.
that
the
I
both
coach,
think in
ways.
that.
It's like it's clear rule. Like your coach should have like told you, but also it does kind of seem like that does suck as like you're going into like the
no, it
one of the
does suck.
biggest rivalry games in hockey, and like it's a rookie like goalie, and he just skated for a little bit, and now they have to go down a man. Like that's kind of it. Like not to
Yeah,
be like as a media guy, you're kind of like that is kind of messed up, but at the same time, it is the rule. So it's like I see both
Rules
ways.
are rule. Rules
Yeah,
are rules for a reason.
coach should have known. And honestly, this Russian kid, like they brought in 4 days. He started classes 4 days ago. Like, I kind of feel like it's just some guy that he just brought in, put behind the net. Probably doesn't speak English. The coach
wasn't
was like,
yeah
yeah,
wasn't
their
the
coach probably,
controversy? Sorry, Jack. I was just I wanted clarification. Like, wasn't the
yeah,
controversy that like one of the BC employees opened the door,
yeah.
but
Apparently
that
the door's open. Yeah,
people
so
claim though that
that's
they
why he locked
always
the
do
door.
that? Yeah, I don't know. I was confused about
I don't
that
know.
too.
Well, the coach should have, he should have told his
Yeah, it's your
goalie not to
rookie.
get out there.
It's a
But
rookie goalie. You tell him everything. Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I guess he barely knows the kid because he just came in 3 days before. So I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
maybe know the rules,
Listen,
buddy.
kid.
So
Welcome to the fucking jungle.
yeah,
This side
yeah,
on this side of Calm Ave, we respect rules. We're
yeah.
rule
yeah,
respecters around here.
You come into BC, you better know the rules, man.
yeah. So hey, and then next Monday, the following Monday, you got the Bean Pot, which is always big at TD Garden. So, and then you kind of close out your season with 6 more games
Hmm.
before the Hockey East and before the NCAAs. So,
Yeah,
basketball and hockey are quickly coming to they're flipping the calendar pretty quickly here into February. So,
On
we'll
one
have to,
side, thank God. On the other side, looking forward to a little
yeah,
postseason.
some postseason
You
action
know,
for sure.
I
Yeah,
won't.
hopefully, yeah. I don't know where the regionals are this year for NCAAs, but it'd be fun to if there's one that fans can go to, like in the Northeast or Mid Atlantic. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I can't speak too much more to our current hockey program, unfortunately. So
So the Frozen Four this year is going to be in St. Louis. It looks like.
St. Louis, gotcha. I wonder where the regional games are. I'll have to figure
And
that
then
out.
some
Yeah.
regionals, they kind of look like in the Midwest. It looks like Allentown, PA, Fargo, North Dakota, Toledo,
Yeah,
Ohio.
hometown.
Oh, Manchester, New Hampshire. That's not too bad.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see where they draw, and then yeah.
Hopefully Manchester. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and then before we know it, we'll have some BC bird ball to talk about. Can't say I'm too familiar, but yeah, looking forward to it.
Fucking right.
Ready. I know we're ready for the baseball season, buddy.
I sure am, buddy. My AirPods died, so I think that means that we're tapped.
I think it's about that time. Yeah, I haven't eaten yet, so I'm getting hungry.
We gotta wrap this up.
Yeah, I know. I need to eat dinner too. It's kind of late here.
Yeah,
I'm kind of hungry.
But hey, I mean, we all said we have a lot to catch up on, and
Yeah, we
did.
do.
So
this is a good catch up.
Episode. Yeah, good catch up, fellas.
We're gonna do Tuesday after the Bean Pot. I'm gonna text Anthony right now.
Yes, let's go.
We'll get Anthony on talk some Bean Pot after. Hopefully it's a win. Hopefully it's not last 2 years were pretty sad losses in the first round. So
one of the coolest sporting events in Boston, man, is the Bean Pot.
It is fun. It is fun.
Yeah. But yeah. All right, good talking to you, fellas.
Any final thoughts? I feel like everything was thrown out on the table tonight.
Yeah, final thoughts. 8-4 is the goal for football. Basketball, might not win another game this year. Hockey might not lose another game this year. So that's pretty much where we're at. So
yeah, I'll say the same thing. Football, basketball, hockey, good, bad, great. And honestly, I'll take it.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. I was just gonna say hockey good, basketball bad. That's all I have.
Yep.
My other free Jack. That's the other thing, Jack. Thank you for your bravery.
Of course, someone's got to ask the questions.
Someone's got to ask him.
Hard-hitting journalism, Eagles Daily. Check us out.
This professional journalism. Yeah, check us out. All our handles at Eagles Daily BC, the podcast at Eagles Weekly BC, similar, but they're not the same. Check us out, man. We're back. Bill O'Brien, yeah, he's still
got it.
That napkin's starting to yellow a little bit. It's old.
Still happening though.
It's an artifact now.
Yeah,
It's still
it
still rings true. All that. Yeah, that's all I got. That's all we got. Eagles Weekly's back, and we'll see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in. Go Eagles.
All right, you fellas, go Eagles.
Go Eagles.
Later, boys.